Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Conservation Stories. I'm your host, Tillery Timmons-Sims, and this is a podcast where we talk about all things conservation and ag and urban ag and rural economies and all kinds of stuff. And we do that on behalf of Sandhill Area Research Association. Today, I have with me a special guest. Her name is Ladona Clayton, and she is with the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy. And I am so excited you are here, Donna.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. Truly, I welcome the opportunity.
I didn't get a chance to go to your meeting in Port Alice, but my partner in crime, Lacey Furtiman, was there, texting me like minute by minute, like updates, and I was like, "Why am I not there? I wish I was there. This is really important. I should have been there." So obviously, she was like, "You have to call her now. We got to get her on the podcast." So I'm really glad that we were able to schedule you as quickly as we have, because I want you to tell me and our listeners about yourself, and then I want you to tell us what you guys are up to.
All right, great. Well, thanks for, I just really want to say first, shout out to Lacey Vardaman, because she's just fabulous. And from the moment I met her, I was just ignited because of her passion for conservation.
Force of nature.
Yes, she is. She's definitely a force of nature. So I was delighted she came to the summit. I'm sorry that you missed it, but we do have we have information available if you're interested in looking at it. I born and raised Portales, New Mexico, so not very far here from my stomping grounds in Clovis on the very eastern side of the state. I graduated there. I went, I've been different places, but pretty much I've stayed close to home, and I've been in Clovis, New Mexico now for 49 years. My whole beginnings are education, which is kind of interesting because people should be asking me, how in the world did you end up in water and land conservation? It was just apparently fate.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you there.
Yeah. I spent 32 years in education, mainly at the administration level. And in 2016, I ran for city commissioner and was elected District 1. That opened up a whole new opportunity for me to really dig in and learn about water, because it was assigned to me from the get-go, Ladonna, how about hosting an Eastern New Mexico Water Conservation Summit that you know nothing about whatsoever? So I'm like, okay, well, I know how to do an event, so I will coordinate that. But on the back end of that event, then the landowners, especially the agriculture producers who attended, said, now that our eyes have been opened quite widely regarding the water scarcity we're going to be facing, how about if we do something about it? How about if we start thinking about some action here? So they prompted me to put together a strategic planning team. I did, and truly that was the starting point. It is the blueprint for our project here in Clovis, New Mexico, residing northwest of Cannon Air Force Base, a major special operations wing, and also known as the Steadfast Line. And we are like family with that installation, and we knew they're running out of water. So we built what's called a master water assurance plan. It took us a year when I was a city commissioner. It didn't find legs for a while until we kept moving forward, and we were relentless in our pursuit to get these key plans implemented, one being to create a land and water conservancy. I began that work October 2021, and by by April 2022, we had 53 irrigation wells voluntarily shut down. So that's the amazing work of irrigation farmers in our area who understood the crisis that we face and stepped up voluntarily and said, we need to stop irrigating. We need to do this, but we can't just stop without being compensated. So our job as a conservancy was, how will we make that happen? Where will we find the funding? And how will we ensure that our landowners remain whole? So that's kind of my journey to this point.
So from October 2021 to April 2022?
Yes. I mean, it was a heavy lift.
Okay, so you held this water conference in 26, but surely like people were aware that y'all were running out of water. Were people really unaware of the situation?
No, I think people understood in 2016, but it is it is difficult to really be able to get people to fully grasp. If they turn the faucet on and water comes out, then we're doing great, right? But the data, the scientific research said very differently. So in our case, we began to create plans, but unfortunately, people did not move the plans like they should have at the city level, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what's happened in Texas.
yeah,
Like we got all these plans, but we've
yeah.
not really
Yes,
funded the implementation of the plans as part of the problem. Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
So, people who are like myself and the group that I work with, these landowners, my board, we all have history and knowledge of the water crisis, and we never stopped pursuing the action. It's just that it came finally into place fully in 2021 when we launched the Conservancy, which was another thing people did not want to get behind. But now everyone sees how critical it is to the work we're doing and the survival of this community.
Can you talk about how, obviously, before October 2021, the owners of these wells were aware of what was coming and they were ready to move on it. So tell me about that. Like how did that happen? And how did you wind up getting the funding, and what was the compensation? What is it that, because I mean, I know if it's like it is here, which I know it is because I lived right on the eastern New Mexico border for quite a while. A lot of people have, their retirement is in their land. Like
Yes.
that's their 401k. And
Oh, you're right.
if you're doing something that is hurting their land value, I know at one of the Texas water meetings, somebody made the statement: if you tell everybody here to stop irrigating, you would have an economic disaster. You can't just like cut it off without having a plan. And you guys obviously had a plan that people have really jumped on.
Yes. Yes, we did. And really the plan was in the initial design in 2016, finishing the plan in 2017. And one of the critical plans was we need to bank this groundwater that is in the Ogallala because, as you well know, the Ogallala is declining at a very rapid rate. And in our case, it's 93% is used by agricultural production, primarily irrigation. So, you don't want to go to the irrigation farmer because they are the breadbasket, they're the heart and core of your economy. And yet you understand they are the greatest users of the water. And fortunately, ours understood this. We're the bigger users. We can no longer afford to irrigate. So from, like 2017, when the plan was finished, people kind of went their way. I could not find success in getting this plan implemented, not the Conservancy and not this banking of groundwater plan. I met with great resistance, although within the plans, it specifically said where the funding sources could and would be if we pursue them. Well, guess what? A group started pursuing those funding sources in 2019.
Oh no.
And so
Okay.
we did it backwards. We had all the funding before we started the project. And that's a beautiful way to go.
So in 2016, you have this conference, and the landowners are like, okay, what are we going to do? So did you organize those owners, and did they have some input into the plan that you created?
Yes, yes. I did a cross section of the community so that we had a balanced representation. That's really important. And you want some city, you want some county, you want people who are decision makers at the table, in the government level, because you need them to be a part of understanding the research. And we were so research rich, and everybody had to dig into this. I still have my 5-inch 3-ring notebook binder with all
Oh,
My
wow.
Yeah, it was significant research because we wanted to be sure we started with a full understanding of what we're facing, where's the best water, where do we go get it, and how do we go about this? And is there other research besides our aquifer mapping study that was shared at the first summit? And there's a lot of great research out there pointing to this end result that we can work together to avoid, or we can just keep doing what we've always done and then we run out of water. So yes, we did bring a cross section of the community together. The agriculture producers' voices have been with us from the very beginning. In fact, you can go back to 2012 with these guys because they're sitting around a table with the former mayor that is now my board president for the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy. And they're all having a conversation as far back as 2012. We think this is coming. Then we end up with the data to support it is coming. We host a summit with voices from Colorado and Texas. And I brought someone in from Arizona. And then we had people locally in New Mexico. And everyone is sharing and truly unpacking key data that all points to you better do something. You better do it now. There are steps you can take. And the plans, there were 5 that came out of this Master Water Assurance Plan. They're all fully being implemented now.
Wow. Wow. So, that's something I like about New Mexico, and I've seen this, not what you're talking about. I've seen the same thing in produced water. When there's a need, there's so not much of, as many years of dragging your feet, and it's like, we got to get on this. We got to get on this. We got to get on this. And then like when you finally get on it, whoa. I mean, do you guys have a state water development board that has a state water plan?
Yes, we do. And even the governor has a new 50-year water plan that she just released. But I sat on the Water Policy and Infrastructure Task Force that was put together by the governor, over a year ago. And we did a lot of fabulous planning. But implementation
Right.
has to happen every time.
Yes.
And this seems to be the hard part for people. But we have to be people of action. So yes, we do have that at the state level. I sit on 5 committees at the state level, all water related. And they're moving things, they're working things. So, the water advocates, a very key group, the water dialogue, key group. We're all talking to each other. We're learning to work together because our entire state understands we are in a water crisis statewide. This is not limited or isolated, right? It's everywhere. I will tell you this, Portales, my hometown, is just 19 miles south of us, and they had the same data we had exactly. Their area was mapped for the aquifer the same time ours was by New Mexico Tech. And this is New Mexico Bureau of Geology and Mineral Resources, led by Jeff Rawling. Okay, they come in, they map our aquifer, much gloomier picture for Portales. And they predicted Portales would be in notable water restrictions by 2023, somewhere around June, July. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened. So stage 3, emergency water restrictions for Portales, New Mexico, who had the same information but took no action. This is a really important thing for people to understand. You've got the data. The data was pointing in a particular direction. If you don't pick up and move, this is the outcome. So now we're trying to do everything we can to help Portales.
Oh my goodness. It's when you're doing a podcast, you have to remember to keep talking, but I feel like I'm speechless. I'm like,
I know.
Wow. I cannot get over the fact that you had 53 wells voluntarily shut down.
Everywhere I present, they're like, are you saying they voluntarily did this? Is that what you said, Ladona? Yes, I am saying that because this is who these people are. These are honorable, care about our community. We're the ones who've taken, but with good cause, to grow our crops. We did. But they'll also tell you, but we overpumped. We did because we thought the water would just continue to come.
Right. Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They were getting like 1,500 miles per gallon, 1,500 gallons per minute. So they're like, oh, wow, this is a lot of great water. But now, they're not getting anything close to that.
Hello friends, this is Tillery Timmons-Sims. I want to take a moment to talk to you about an initiative that we are collaborating on with Milestone Environmental Services. So Milestone made us aware of some proposed regulations that are before the Railroad Commission. So in Texas, the Railroad Commission, even though the name doesn't match, regulates the energy sector. And our laws, our regulations for energy waste have not been updated since the 1980s. So it's time for some common sense improvements in those regulations, and those are right now waiting for you to go and comment on. So in order to protect our soil and our groundwater, this is really important. So if landowners have not negotiated a great surface agreement with the oil company, then they are open to having waste dumped on their land. So we really appreciate your efforts. So you can go to sarah-conservation.com. You can go to initiatives and click on that, and the drop box that will come down, you'll want to click on energy waste disposal. It's going to be really clear and really simple. Thanks for your time, friends. Appreciate it. Bye.
So tell me then, okay, so there's five, there's 5 plans, or is it like a 5-part plan?
There are 5 separate plans, okay, because it builds what we call a water portfolio. And that's what every community needs, a water portfolio. You need to look at every possible water supply you have available. Don't discount anything. So if you don't have surface water, which we don't have any surface water, but we're trying to work to bring surface water in from the Ute Reservoir. So they're building pipeline as you and I speak,
really?
To get it to 4 communities.
Okay.
So the surface water is coming, but it'll be 7 years still before it arrives. In the meantime, we've got to conserve this groundwater as our sole, truly finite source of water. Number 2 then, or 3, I should say, because you've got the surface water on its way. We've got groundwater available, must conserve. Number 3 is effluent reuse. Effluent reuse is like vital, like gold is what it is.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we're saving millions of gallons of water through that system. And then you want to think about your playas and restoring them and be sure they're fully functioning to try to get as much recharge as you can. Although we all realize we can't recharge the aquifer rapidly, every drop counts, right?
Right, because we're not talking about a 1-year problem. We're talking about generations, and how do we prepare for generations to come? Yes. So you've got your surface, your ground, your effluent, and then your restoration of playas, and you have one more. What's your 5th thing?
Well, there are 4
There's
water
4 water
sources there.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The 5th plan is just create a conservancy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
A land and water conservancy. So the other 4 plans, though, are all attached to what we just identified, 4 different water sources. Yeah.
Sometimes do you wake up and go, I can't believe that this has happened? Like I was teaching one day, and the next day
I know.
I'm like doing this thing.
Yes, I do. And the thing that took me by surprise is that I have a doctorate in educational leadership, and so I have a far-reaching, I guess I should say, far-reaching understanding of the key place that leadership plays in moving things, right? But it must be done well. So I was surprised to see that those skills, that knowledge base, it transfers beautifully into leading this conservancy, because these are similar skill sets and the knowledge base is the same, except you must now learn about water, irrigation wells, monitoring those wells. I had to learn about conservation easements. I'm deep up to my neck in 3 of those right now. So that's been kind of like drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Wow. Okay. So you basically then, you started getting movement, but you lost your funding because that funding went somewhere else. What did you do? What did you do then when you're like, okay, now we got to find different funding? Did you find different funding, or was that source refunded?
Oh, no, we never lost our funding.
Oh, okay.
It's
I'm
just
sorry,
that,
misunderstood.
yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. No, when we started, we just couldn't tap the funding we wanted to. No one seemed to have the wherewithal to really reach out. But then we reached out to Cannon Air Force Base for what's called the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program. Now, this resides under the Department of Defense, and we had actually identified this within the cost benefit analysis that goes with the action plan. We said, where are we going to get the money? We knew about this tool, this instrument. So now finally, someone goes out and says, we need you to write this proposal because it must come from that military installation.
Okay.
And they did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they did. And we started out with 4.5 million there. Then we went to NRCS, National
Yes.
Resources Conservation Service, yes, for a regional conservation partnership program proposal, got 6.9 million there. So now, things are moving, right? So the very funding sources we said to go after, we have acquired. There's a whole story about then what we do to identify how to truly compensate the landowners fairly, because you're not just going to shut the well up. The most important thing truly to us, and especially near and dear to my heart, is you make sure every landowner is compensated fairly for doing something so honorable to help the many, for the common good. So the first thing we did is we went in to meter the water. So we use a wraparound ultrasonic flow meter. NRCS works with us to get that job done. And we identify 7,559 gallons per minute of available water in a semi-contiguous well field next to Cannon Air Force Base. Now, it's in what's called a paleo channel, which is a unique formation in the aquifer. And this one especially showed more promise to get the water, out of pockets of water there were still existing. So if you take 7,559, believe it or not, gallons per minute, and you do the calculation for a 3-year lease. So we did a 3-year short-term water right lease of that water, and that equates to 12 billion gallons of water. So every year you're gaining because every year they're no longer using the water, right, for irrigation.
Yeah.
And every time you add another well, you're adding more water, which now we're at 56 wells. So we're continuing to try to work with more landowners. But that's step one. Step one is go and meter the water and find out what they have. Step two is appraise that water. No one had appraised the value of groundwater before. So that was, that was new. And we figured out how to do it, though. And what's really important is you ask yourself this question: what work was that water doing? So that means crops. What crops did it grow? You want a 3-year crop budget there. For 3 years, you want to map that. But you want to use the present market value for the crop so they get the best, most fairest value. It's an income approach. So you're really looking at highest and best use, most beneficial use of the water, using an income approach for this appraisal. And you consider all things. You consider everything it cost for that crop, not just the water used, right? But all the things attached, right?
Right. You're looking at their net profit.
Yes, you're looking at their net profit, and then you're going to compare what happens if we transition them to dry land. You have to do that too. Now, I will tell you that there's these beautiful crop budgets you can access.
Oh, yeah. I know about those.
Oh, do you know?
Oh, I do. I've used those many times.
Yes. And what an asset, because we are so close to the panhandle, we could use those and apply them to, okay, what would that have been? What was the price of the seed that you put in the ground? What was this price? What was that price? So we take all of that into account. We look at the irrigation assets. We look at what's sitting on the property. What's that value? Everything must be taken into account when you're appraising the value of the groundwater. And then when you're asking the landowner to walk away from what he or she has always known, generationally even, and move to something you already know will not be as profitable.
Right. Exactly. It's a huge sacrifice. Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a big one. So when you do the water appraisal, you determine what is the appraised value of the water multiplied by the gallons per minute of water production, annual water production. So when you do the multiplier, it's, well, we appraised your water value at, let's say, $250 per gallon. Or maybe we did it at 225. So no one's is the same. Everybody's looked at individually. Very important, because no two farmers are the same. I can tell you today that our producers would say we're pretty happy with our payout for this, because it's going to be close to, if not. Some of them said, Ladona, we came out a little better here.
Well, also just the mental. I mean, generations of that mental stress of the unknown every year, the unknown. I mean, I can see how beneficial this could be for some families. So beneficial.
It's been wonderful to watch it, because we faithfully pay them every June 14th. I just made the third payment, and they know it's coming and they're counting on it. But it's still so enjoyable for me, because I love all of these producers so much. But they'll go like, Ladona, are we going to get paid again this year? Of course you are. Yes. And is it going to be on time? Well, yes, you will, because there's still a little of that uncertainty.
I know.
Naturally.
You just can't believe it's going to happen.
No. They can't believe it, and it keeps coming.
That's just amazing. That's great. I just really love that you went, here's a need, and it's like farmer first. Like here's who has it, and we're so dependent on them. And I've seen Kansas do this, say we are so dependent on agriculture. It's like you said, it's our breadbasket. So what can we do to ensure that the farmer is going to remain economically sound while we reduce, the use of water? It's vital for them too, because it's the same thing with all of us. It's this, like, if you don't have water, you don't have ag. But if you don't have ag, you don't have an economy, and you might as well not have water.
That is right. And our landowners, they would tell you the following: Ladona, I wanted to keep having water for domestic and livestock use, and if I don't stop irrigating, I'm not going to have it.
Right. Well, and what you've done is you've been able to help them get out of the cycle. Because I will tell you, knowing, so my husband and I farmed. We're both sides of the family, on his side and my side, as long as anybody can remember. It's been farming. Nothing else. And when my brother retires, there will be no one left in agriculture on both sides of our family. Both sides. Just, my side, two sides. And so, but I know when we had to get out of farming, we went through bankruptcy. What happened to us is we could see that we needed to get out, and there was no really way to get out. You were going to lose so much, that you were like, how can we afford to get out? We're going to lose all of this. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. And then, the bank is like, just take out more notes, just take out more money, go get more credit cards, and finally, we're at this place where, like, there's literally nothing to do, and what I see y'all doing is, because we could not have said, we're going to stop doing row crops and we're going to go to rangeland, because the bank would have been like, no, you're not, because you will not make enough money to pay us back what you owe us. And so, I mean, farmers are not always making their own decisions. They're at the mercy of their lender a lot of times. And for sure we were. And so what you've done is you've put some power back into their hands and given them another option.
Yes, and we made sure too, and this is really important, when you give them the other option, be sure they still have the water they need. So we built that into the water right lease agreement, right? So that they can have up to 20% of the water for livestock and for domestic use, and even to maintain their irrigation wells in case they decide they do not want to stay in with us on this journey. Because remember, it's voluntary. So if you get in it and you go, I think I made a big mistake, or this is just not what I wanted. So we still leave the door open for them.
Wow.
Yeah, that's important to do. And at the same time, what we are doing is we're paying them for 100% of the value of the water, but we're giving them 20%. Now that's just unheard of. You wouldn't normally do that. You'd say, hey, we're paying you for 100%, we get 100%. But no, you must again keep that producer whole. So while we're doing that, we are transitioning them. So just know that we're working to help them transition. What do you want to do? How can we help you make this transition? We'll find the funding.
Wow. So you're actually, we had someone on earlier that we were interviewing, and he worked for the Noble Institute and was talking about that there was a group of 5 or 6 that have different, specialties like ag economics, a range specialist, and agronomist. I mean, all these different specialties that would go to farms and help them, like what you're doing. Like, hey, here's all of these resources and all of this knowledge that's available. Let's look at what you've got and let's see what we can do. It sounds to me like that's kind of what you guys are, doing in some ways.
Yes. The long-term solution is a conservation easement, and I've got 3 about to go into one of those. But in the conservation easement, they'll still maintain 20% of the water.
On your conservation easements, do you have a particular, or have you created a fund for your own easements, or are these NRCS?
NRCS is funding half of it, and the Department of Defense REPI. Again, REPI is Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program. Now, here's the amazing thing about them, though. The Department of Defense has been incredible in this effort. They're paying for all of the conservation easement acquisition costs for every one of these landowners.
The DOD is.
Yes, the DOD is. We're talking, you've got your stewardship fee, you have to have your title insurance, you have to have your legal done. So legal defense fund, you must set that up, because we're using Texas Agricultural Land Trust to do that work for us. Okay, they're mentoring me because obviously I don't have a background. And so we decided we'll just partner with TALT, or they said yes. Thank you, God, that they said yes. Truly. Yeah. So they said yes, and they're helping us do these easements. And they have a beautiful model in place with important acquisition costs already identified. But here we have a group that says we don't want them to take a dime out of their pocket. We're going to pay for it. And that's Department of Defense. And it's through the REPI program. But I want to add, here's where the beauty comes in for the survival of the community. Because that water, that 20%, our farmers don't need the full 20%. They only need about 6 to 8 maybe for their needs on their land. What they're going to do is name their price to our private water utility to pull that water out.
Okay, so they can turn around and sell whatever of that water. Wow.
Yes, we will be selling to that utility who will move that water down pipeline to get the water to the city and county areas and Cannon. You've got to have this big plan in mind. The water can't forever stay in the ground, but you've got to withdraw it slowly. You've got to withdraw it as needed and tap that water so that the community doesn't go without. But while you're doing that, you compensate the farmers so they make some more money on top of what they're already getting.
So, devil's advocate, I'm sure you're familiar with what's gone on with the mule shoe land grab
Yes.
thing. So one of the comments, I heard was how much, CRP hurt when land went into CRP, it hurt the local economy. And I'd never heard that said before. I've never seen. I did go home and spent some time Googling, trying to find some research. And if anybody out there has them, I'd love to read it, because I couldn't find anything that showed that. So what are you thinking about farm labor, implement companies, all types of insular ag, businesses? What are y'all expecting to see? Are you seeing any kind of negative impact, or do you feel like you will eventually see some?
I think that we've already experienced some negative pushback, even from those who relied on the feed for their cattle grown by these farmers. We've seen that. We've seen some pushback from the dairy industry, specifically, concerned about it. It does, there is this systemic impact. There is, definitely, but this is a slice of the pie of the bigger picture of how we went about getting needed water reserve. It's not every irrigation landowner in the entire area. It's a concentrated area. So yes, we will see, I think, I'm certain we will see more impact down the road. Even if you look at Farmers Electric Co-op, as we shut down an irrigation well.
No,
right?
yeah, right. That's what I'm looking at. Yes, that's what I'm thinking too, is and to that end too, the loss of that dividend for that farmer, that's a whole nother, thing that you have to add into the economics of them turning that water off.
Yes.
It's a lot to think about. I mean, a lot to think about. And
it is.
Yeah. And boy, kudos to them to have the fortitude and to be willing to do what they've done. It's so amazing. One of my favorite quotes is, there's farmer that grew up on the plains, was he just had to be gritty, and he kept one eye on his neighbor and his practices, and he adopted the ones that worked, because if he didn't change, he wasn't going to survive. And I'm I think about that so often and think, that is still somewhere in our DNA. And we're going to have we've got to pull from that fortitude, pull from that, those, of our ancestors that went through the Dust Bowl. And we got to say, we want better for our kids and then the next generation. And what's that going to look like?
I agree.
It's hard decisions to make, but you have certainly found a way to make a hard decision more palatable.
Yes, and I think we all need to work together. I don't want to work in silos. We can't be in silos. We have to help each other solve this tremendous challenge in front of us.
Yes, we do. And that's one of the things I have. We've been, part of the New Mexico Produced Water Consortium for a while. And I absolutely, Mike Hightower he's just a fantastic leader. And, it's not about, when you go talk to him about something, it's not about how much money you're going to bring to the table. It's not about that.
No.
It is. No. It's about, we have a problem. Do you want to be a part of fixing that problem? Then come on over here. And it's not about my ego and who's gonna look good and who's gonna win what, and nothing. It is about a problem that has to be fixed. And I just, really, once again, say I really admire what you are doing there in New Mexico, what you're doing, what Mike's doing, what happens at New Mexico State. I mean, I'm just some great and gritty people on that side of our border.
Well, we really appreciate that. And we appreciate our neighbors in the Texas Panhandle. We do. I just have the highest regard for you as our neighbors. I consider you family. I meet somebody like Lacey, I'm instant rapport.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking with you, you're talking my language. I hear your passion in your voice, just like I know it exists in my being. We have to be passionate people about solving or addressing what does it look like? What can we do? What if new technology comes in later. We're going to tap that too. So we have to stay on top of our game.
Exactly. And, I think one of the things I've really struggled with is, you have to be willing to be the one that nobody wants to hear you talk about it anymore.
Right.
You're going to have to be the one that people are like, when you're around with the family and the family's like eye rolling. Now, that's me. That's me.
Yes. Yeah, that's me too.
Blowing the whistle. I'm just always blowing the whistle. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
We're beating the drum all the time.
Yes,
because
exactly.
we have to beat the drum.
Exactly. Yes. We don't want people to forget. There's too many things. And I think especially now there's so many things that distract us, and there are problems all over the world. It is so easy for us to overlook our closest neighbors, and forget that we have responsibilities, to the people that are here and sharing the land with us.
Yes. And that's beautifully stated. We have to remember the land is shared with everyone. The water is shared with everyone. We all need it. We rely upon it for our survival. And we're going to all meet with opposition. I know, because I'm experiencing it daily. And at the same time, we have to be risk takers. Don't you find that to be true?
No, that is exactly what it is. We have to take a risk socially. We have to take that risk. We have to take the risk of doing something different. And, the entire society has to do that with the farmer. And how do we educate and make certain that, in a city the size of Lubbock, that the 300,000 people that are here understand that they are standing on the shoulders of agriculture. That all of our other economy is standing on the shoulders of this one, base. And we've got to find ways to do what you're doing, and to me, it seems like what y'all have done a great job of, the people are aware of this, and that, of course, I'm sure it helps when you have like 19 miles away of a city that doesn't have water, but we have little communities around us that don't have water. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say before we close out?
Oh, the only thing I want to say is thank you so much for the opportunity to share our story, because we are excited to share it, and we want to help others replicate the model in ways that work where they live and breathe every day. So we're ready to do that. We're not holding on to it. We're not charging anybody anything. We just want to give freely of what we've learned and share with others who are facing the same dilemma. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your courage. And next time you see that group of farmers, you tell them I said, man, they're on my list of heroes for what they've done.
I will tell them.
Yes.
Yeah, they're my heroes, those guys.
So thanks again, Ladona, for joining us today, and we look forward to the next episode. Bye-bye.